Good evening, residents of Everett, Washington. I'd like to call to order the Everett City Council meeting of December 4th, 2024. For information on council meetings and how to participate, please visit our website at everettwa.gov/city council. We have a great crowd tonight, and I appreciate everyone's patience. And yes, I appreciate everyone sitting down. I'm very grateful for the community participation. So clerk, please take the roll.
Mayor Franklin.
Here.
Councilmember Toohey.
Here.
Councilmember Bader.
Here.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Vice President Sarlingo.
Here.
Councilmember Vogely.
Here.
Councilmember Fosse, your name tag's missing.
Here.
President Schwab.
Here. At this time, I'd like to ask Councilmember Bader to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to ask Councilmember Vogely to read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you. In lieu of the land acknowledgement tonight, I wish to acknowledge that the people of this land still live here, still gather here, and continue to attempt to honor their sacred spiritual connection to this earth. And this book narrates from 562 federally recognized Native American tribal nations.
Thank you. And for presenters or public commenters on Zoom tonight, please leave your video off, and the audio muted will be it'll be muted until you're called upon. Thank you. Also, item number 15 has been pulled from the agenda at administrative request. And so on to old business. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes for November 20, 2024?
So moved.
Councilor Ryan seconds.
Okay, motion and seconds made. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Toohey.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Abstain.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice President Sarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Abstain?
Councilmember Fosse. Beautiful.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes, thank you. And good evening, Mayor.
Good evening, President Schwab, Council, and our community. I have a few comments this evening, but I thought I'd start by swearing in our newest officer. So Deputy Chief Hendrickson, if you could come forward and introduce them.
Thank you, ma'am. Jeff Hendrickson with the City of Everett. Really excited to offer up our two newest officers. I'll start with Hannah. Hannah McLaughlin was born in Bury, St. Edmunds, United Kingdom, on the Royal Air Force Base. Her parents were both in the U.S. Navy, which resulted in several moves to include California, Pennsylvania, Florida, and New Jersey, where she graduated from Egg Harbor Township High School in 2011. Hannah joined the U.S. Army after graduating from high school and enlisted as a 35M human intelligence collector. She spent most of her military service at Fort Hood, Texas, but also traveled to Germany for pre-deployment training and was deployed to Afghanistan. Additionally, she attended the Defense Language Institute for Chinese Mandarin in Monterey, California. After leaving the military, Hannah wanted to continue to be of service to her community, and she knew a career in law enforcement would align with her core values. Hannah chose Everett PD for the opportunities for growth, our culture, and leadership. Hannah graduated from the Basic Law Enforcement Academy on November 27th. Now back at the department, she looks forward to developing herself into a solid patrol officer to establish a strong foundation that she could build on throughout her career. In Hannah's spare time, she enjoys outdoors as much as possible with her wife, Kendall, and their two dogs. She also enjoys jiu-jitsu, biking, soccer, and playing guitar. Hannah McLaughlin. Uzo Wokedi. Uzo was born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria, and is the oldest of 5 siblings. He moved to the United States in 1998 and attended the University of Houston, Texas. Prior to joining EPD, Uzo had a lengthy career with Comcast, starting as a technical support representative in Houston. When he moved to Washington in 2015, he was the manager of technical operations for the Seattle metro area. Uzo decided to transition to law enforcement to help keep our community safe and thriving, and to continue towards strengthening the relationship between police officers and the community we serve. Uzo enjoys the Everett area. When researching different departments to work for, he was impressed by EPD's professionalism, officer resources, and community support. Uzo graduated from the Basic Law Enforcement Academy on November 27th and is eager to begin engaging with our community in positive ways. He's excited to bring his wealth of life and professional experience to the rewarding profession. Uzo joins EPD with his wife Sharon. Their 4 adult children, sons Philip, Calvin, and Lewis, and daughter Sierra. In his spare time, Uzo enjoys working out, watching professional sports, and taking in the beautiful outdoors of the Pacific Northwest. Uzo Wokedi.
Thank you. So do I have a motion to accept Hannah McLaughlin and Uzo Nukedi as the newest members of the Everett Police Department?
So moved the motion.
Second.
Okay, motion and second's been made. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Tui,
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely,
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, please state your name,
I, Hannah McLaughlin,
Uzawakati,
do solemnly swear
do
solemnly swear
that I am either a citizen of the United States or a lawful permanent resident,
that I am either a citizen of the United States or a lawful permanent resident,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Everett,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Everett,
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
that
I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
perform the duties of police officer
perform the duties of police officer
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So again, welcome to our newest officers, and thank you for choosing Everett. A few other comments I have this evening. First, Wintertide officially kicked off on Friday, and I really want to thank our team, Tyler and Kari. The event was a huge hit, and I know there's tons of folks from parks and throughout this public works and throughout the city that help, but we really prioritized offering free family fun, and the work really paid off with a jam-packed downtown and families enjoying snow and Santa and Frozen and all kinds of fun all day. Thank you to Everett Transit for delivering Santa to the festivities. Wintertide continues through the month of December, so encourage everyone to check out visiteverett.gov to see what else is happening and enjoy the festivities. And then tonight, our council is voting on the 2025 budget, which, as everybody knows, includes some significant reductions. First, I want to start by thanking the council for the work that you've done over the last weeks and months, digging in, rolling up your sleeves, looking at our budget, asking really tough questions, making tough decisions. The cuts that we have recommended were necessary to address the city's longstanding structural deficit, which has persisted for over 20 years. While these decisions were difficult, our team made sure to prioritize essential services identified by the community and council as we worked through the process. This budget reflects the most conservative and transparent approach to managing a municipal budget, following a practice we've used for nearly a decade. It's a method that ensures stability while being responsible with our taxpayer dollars. My 2025 budget, like every other budget I proposed as mayor, is balanced. This means we have the resources to cover all planned expenses and keep a healthy fund balance. Unlike many other cities, we don't borrow money to cover our daily operations. We do use a small portion of carry-forward funds, also known as budget variance, which is a very common practice. However, we carefully manage this to ensure fiscal responsibility. By resolution, we maintain an ending fund balance of at least 20% of annual operating revenues. In reality, our city's average actual fund balance is 31%, far exceeding our requirement. This isn't a savings account. It's a financial safety net that helps us prepare for unexpected economic changes, and it's a sign of a very well-managed budget. A big thank you to our former finance director, Susie Hagan, and Heidi Brillantes, our current finance director, for your sound financial management. For comparison, many cities require just 12 or 15% in their fund balance. It's also important to understand that having too large of a fund balance isn't responsible either. Our approach is disciplined, responsible, and ensures we meet our financial obligations while using taxpayer dollars wisely to meet our community's growing needs and plan for our future. And again, thank you to the council for your work, and good luck on your deliberations this evening. No further comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now it's time for public comment, which includes written comment acknowledgement. Under our rules, written comments shall be considered in the same manner as oral comments. A person submitting comments must provide their name and city of residence to be made part of the official record. Good evening, Jennifer. Do we have any written comments or anyone signed up to speak? Oh,
Sorry.
well, I was going to offer you the option not to speak. If
Oh.
You're good, though?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
All right.
So we do have.
Thank you, Angie.
Yes,
You're
we have
going to have to
some,
speak up with that mask, though.
so we have some written comments
Okay?
and some people here to speak, none on Zoom. So I'll read the names that we received written
Okay.
comments from. Rylan Richards, and these, sorry, are all in regards to the Aquasox Stadium. So Rylan Richards, Jeremy Oshie, Gregory Wetzel, Michael Boyle, Lisa Richards, Jason Mayer, Alex Alexander, Millie and Tony Lewenden, Mary Osmond, Julie Martinson, Carol Alvarez, Cheryl Turletter, Selena, Nancy Vandenberg, Travis Sasser, and Sherry Summerfield. And these have all been provided to council, legal, city clerk, and administration to be part of the record. And so moving on to those in chambers, if Austin could please come to the podium. Followed by Olushola. And please hit the right button on the base of the mic and state your full name and city of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Austin Sweats, Everett, Washington. Shame. Shame on each and every one of you who constituted, implemented, upheld, and enforced the cruelty that is Everett Municipal Code 9.54, the criminalization of existing while unhoused. For those of you who aren't familiar, Title IX of Everett Municipal Code, Public Peace, Moral and Welfare, Division 4, Offenses Against Public Peace, Chapter 9.54, unofficially referred to as the No Sit, No Lie laws, is a city ordinance that directly attacks and targets unhoused members of our community by making arbitrary things like placing a backpack, sleeping bag, or simply sitting on the sidewalks illegal, and punishable by imprisonment of up to 90 days, a fine of up to $500, or both. Not only is being unhoused a crime, but so is feeding and supplying them with essentials. The No Sit, No Lie ordinance should be renamed. Your existence disgusts me. Get out of my sight. Instead of tackling the root cause of our city's housing crisis, barely livable wages, predatory landlords, superfluous city spending, over-policing of our BIPOC neighbors, lack of accessible mental health and social services, and dozens of other unaddressed causes, our elected officials decide to make it illegal to exist as an unhoused human being. And the way Everett PD treats our unhoused neighbors leads me to believe that the powers of the city barely see unhoused people as human at all. How dare you declare Title IX is constituting moral and welfare, while EMC 9.54 is nothing but inhumane, cruel, and unusual punishment that upholds the welfare of property owners over that of human life. No one is more public than the unhoused. While their existence, While their lives consist of zero expected privacy, having to struggle to survive day in, day out, while being harassed and abused by both our own police department and entitled residents alike. Our council members, as well as all of us, are privileged enough not to be forced to survive the elements while being dehumanized and criminalized by the same oppressive corporate state systems that perpetuate the insurmountable conditions that put them there in the first place. Again, it seems to me like the powers of the city don't see our unhoused community members as human. It seems to me like they don't actually want to solve the housing crisis, but to make them go away or wait for them to die. Instead of actually getting to the root of our housing crisis, they want to increase the municipal budget for upper-class amenities like golf courses, all while slashing our library's budget of upwards of 16%. The removal of the historic 100-year-old Clark Park gazebo is a direct attack on our unhoused neighbors, being lauded under the guise of neighborhood improvement and addressing public safety. Do our public officials and city planners really think it would be best to remove a structure that is being utilized by the public as a daily shelter from the elements? Are you really fencing off the whole park just in time for deadly cold weather conditions to take more victims? Tearing down a life-saving shelter like the Clark Park gazebo without supplying non-discriminatory shelters and tenable public health initiatives is just another example of aggressive classist gentrification, if you ask me. Not only does fencing off the entire park make the gazebo unusable, but the rest of the park and the playground as well. To those of you who don't have a heart of empathy for our unhoused community members, remember this. We're all a hell of a lot closer to being poor than you are to being a millionaire, and we're all just a few bad months or an overpriced medical emergency away from being out on the streets. Keep the Clark Park gazebo where it belongs.
Thank you. Next. Olushola, please come to the podium, followed by Michelle. And please state your full name and city of residence, and just hit the right button on the base of the mic. There we go.
All right. My name is Olushola Bolanduro. Most people know me as Shola for short. And I'm a resident of Everett, Washington. I have been since 2019. So I want to start off by saying it's nice that
Your mic got turned off. Can you please hit, there we go. We got it on now.
Okay. Do I need to press it? No, we're good. All right. Thank you. So I want to start off by saying that compared to last time, it's nice to see a lot more people of color in here. And it kind of goes into what I want to say here. So I saw the Clark Park. I saw the fencing, and honestly, it's not exactly the prettiest sight to just go down the hill and just see all that fencing, where I used to see kids play and folks just hang out at the park. Whether or not they were housed didn't really bug me by itself. It was just people just existing. And I always found it very problematic, the idea of doing a land acknowledgement while criminalizing just existing. Like, it's a contradiction that has been on my mind ever since I first stepped foot in here and heard the land acknowledgement for myself. Does it really mean anything if we're going to acknowledge that we live on stolen land, but all white councils get to decide where we should sit, when I should give a random person food? It never made sense to me. And well, given what basically all of us know is going to happen this January, I kind of wonder whether I'll be next. First, it's the unhoused, then it's going to be anyone else who's deemed undesirable by well-off white folks in this city. It's going to be unhoused folks, it's going to be the LGBTQ, it's going to be people of color like me. It never just ends with just one marginalized group. Others are pushed into the chopping block next. So I've been feeling so much dread for the past month thinking about what kind of future is Everett going to have? What does being an all-American city look like? What kind of America does Everett want to embody? And seeing how, this country's history has been, and how there are some who want to go back to a simpler time, a time where people like me could use the same water fountain as someone who shared y'all's skin color, a time in which we've had lobotomies being the norm, eugenics being the norm. I feel like when I hear story after story of people who are unhoused being treated poorly by police, by wealthy white homeowners and others, I see us going in a direction in which, well, we're going to be the kind of America that I used to think we were ashamed of. So what kind of America are we going to be? That's all I have to say.
And please state your full name and city of residence. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Michelle Pendergrass. I am the PCO for Precinct 13 in Mary's district. You can't hear me if I stand way back here, can you? Can I do this? So I just wanted to I know you guys are ratifying or whatever the word is for your budget tonight, but the cold weather shelter thing has really been bothering me. Last night, we knew it was getting down to 30. So my husband and I grabbed some scarves and some hats and then went and talked to the Rainbow Church that is one of our cold weather shelters. We only have 2. They're both basically in North Everett. I don't know what happens in the south. It doesn't look like much. But with those 2 shelters, anyway, we went and stopped at one of them, and they said they would take some people late. So we drove around looking for these people where they might not know. And we found some, and they were going to head down there, and we gave them some scarves and some hats. And it occurs to me now, I broke the law. I broke the law just because I gave them some scarves and hats. And that's messed up, you know? It's not a law that we want, is it? I mean, who would vote for a law like that? But beyond that, my real point is that there's no daytime shelters at all on Sundays and Mondays, because according to our Everett City website, which defers to the Snohomish County website, but it says the libraries are your daytime shelters, and we don't have a library anymore on Sundays or Mondays, or at least, you know, and I know it's the voters decided to cut back on the money, but there must be somewhere else to pull that from, rather than shut down the library. I mean, at least until it's not freezing outside, because that is our daytime warming centers. Tomorrow it's going to rain, and it's going to be 15 degrees warmer than it is today. I spent 45 minutes in a dog park, and my hands were aching by the time I left, and they spent at least half the time in my pockets. And so I just go outside and walk around for an hour tomorrow in the rain, and just think about that. And maybe before then, you'll have thought about how cold you were today and make some good decisions towards the library and warming centers, and just hope we're doing the budget right. I overheard him say something about the golf course. I didn't know we were doing upgrades to the golf course. I sure hope that's not coming from a budget that could help the libraries out, or a warming center or something like that, because that would suck. That's all I have to say.
And we have one last individual, but they wish to wait until we get to agenda item 29.
Great, thank you. Thank you for everyone that's speaking. All right, on to our council comments. We'll start with Councilmember Toohey.
Just want to thank everybody for coming tonight and speaking, and congratulations to our new officers. And other than that, I have no further comment.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Bader.
Thanks, Council President. No comment, no report. Thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Ryan.
Great, thank you. Good evening. Thank you, folks, for coming to share your comments tonight. I really appreciate it. And I wasn't on the council when the original no sit, no lie was passed, but I would have absolutely voted against it. I also wanted to further comment about the golf course. It is a totally separate fund than our general fund, so just wanted to make sure that was clear. I also attended the tree lighting ceremony on Friday, which was a wonderful kickoff to Wintertide. It is difficult being there as a council member and a mom, that just thinking about with our budget cuts coming up, that just fun things like a tree lighting are completely on the chopping block now. I think that's really sad. So this upcoming budget discussion is going to be really difficult, and I'm thankful for the mayor and her staff for the difficult challenges and discussions that had to go into what's going to be proposed later tonight. So thank you. Today I attended the Puget Sound Regional Council Economic Development Committee meeting, and it was a good discussion about housing and the housing crisis and the tools at PSRC is putting together for like a think tank type of group to help address that, so for a regional approach to our housing instability. And earlier tonight, we had our Health and Human Services Committee meeting and heard from representatives from Compass Health about Andy's Place and their Phase 2 expansion for the new facility going in on Broadway, and I appreciate the commitment from the community to continue to ask Compass for increased security patrols and just assurances to the neighbors that that any street-level issues and predatory behavior on people who are trying to receive services at Andy's Place are addressed in a timely manner. So more to come on that. And also tonight, we had a discussion about the proposed rental registry and tenant protections ordinance that Councilmember Fossey and I have been working on. We had a chance to talk through a few of the different policy decision points, but ultimately it's going to be placed on hold during the legislative session because the state legislature is going to be taking up tenant protections again this session. So we wanted to see where that lands before moving forward with anything that we would do. So that's all for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Zarlingo.
Well, also welcome to our new officers. It's really gratifying that we are making progress on staffing up to the kinds of intents we have, the budgets for that. And also great to see the qualifications that these people have, the backgrounds and the diversity there that helps complement and match the diversity of our city. So welcome the officers, and I think we're doing a lot better than other cities in the region. I really appreciate our department and the hard work, because I know getting officers in a very competitive environment with the kind of quality we're getting is a heck of an achievement. And important because public safety is foundational. Also, one other item, I'm representing Everett on the Washington State Department of Transportation's SR 99 Linwood at Unincorporated Snohomish County Pre-Design Study Executive Advisory Group. Not the longest title of anything I've ever been on. But the idea of this is that to help Everett coordinate with WSDOT's project to do more in that area from Airport Road, the south edge of Everett, on south through Linwood to 200 and something or so. And this is important in a number of ways. Partly, it's a big commuter corridor. It's a big freight corridor. It's an area where people walk and bike. It's an area where we've got real safety problems. There have been a lot of incidents in terms of injuries and fatalities in that area. DOT is taking a long-term look at that. So I think it's good for Everett to be matched up with that so that we coordinate well and we don't have any head palm or face palm kind of moments in the choices that are made. Though I will also say it looks like this is the kind of thing that will go on for some years, because it's a big project. Highway 99 is a big thing, and it's got a bunch of somewhat competing priorities. Anyway, more news on that as that group makes progress.
Thank you. Councilmember Vogel.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I offered my colleagues a link to watch Homelessness Truth Bombs, 41 Years of It Only Getting Worse, a video conversation with Paul Bowden, Executive Director of the Western Regional Advocacy Project. There are more than a few F-bombs, but well worth the watch for anyone dabbling in understanding the history of homelessness in America. I encourage anyone to watch it, and anything else by the group Invisible People. In another person's words, I will say, I am beyond disturbed with the current situation. A full house of seniors, disabled, and desperate community members. There are people crying from being in pain from the cold, being soaked since the time we closed yesterday. One is waiting until it seems late enough to go to the hospital that they will hopefully keep him so that he has somewhere to be, as he got a trespassing charge ticket last night when he lay down not feeling well. He is battling cancer. I had another organization show up with folks looking to get in out of the cold and rain. The outreach organization is apologizing, and with that, saying there is nowhere else to take them. One person is banned from the library, so there's nowhere to go. He has developmental disabilities and is very sad and lost. There is still no day drop-in center in Everett, and we are being shut down. So we are overrun at capacity because there is nowhere to go, and we are being forced to stop. There is, in my words, Esther's Place, a day center for women, open Monday through Friday. I was there on Tuesday, and I was making weaved pieces of something out of leftover plastic, because that might help keep your butt cold if you're at a bus stop and it's cold and it doesn't retain water. So there are a whole lot of problems for being homeless in our community, and we're closing down the ones that we have and not taking seriously the ones that we could have. And one final note, we are all connected. My friend Joey Eje, he was born in Nigeria, just like one of the officers that we swore in today. But his life was taken abruptly 364 days ago. Tomorrow will be the one-year anniversary of his death, and I just want to acknowledge and say his name, Joseph Eje, in memoriam. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fosse.
Thanks. Also, welcome to our new officers. Thank you for your willingness to serve. I'm glad to have you join the team. And we haven't seen you guys in a little bit, so recently I've been able to attend the Boys and Girls Club, had a wonderful community dinner that was very, very enlightening and fun to bring my family to. Lots of other folks there. We had recently our Fiscal Advisory Committee meeting, which I'm sure President Schwab will go into, so I don't need to. And then in addition to that, there was an AquaSox and USL information meeting that happened yesterday. That was very informative about just looking forward. That we were guests at. And I think Councilmember Ryan gave a pretty good description of the Health and Human Services Committee. You can watch those online. Some of the security concerns, both for like the neighbors as well as for the residents that are there, it's a really nuanced issue. So I encourage you to go online and take a look at that. And they provided a lot of information there. Thank you to our public speakers. As always, I love seeing a full house here and people coming to advocate and inform us and share their comments and their thoughts. As far as the shelter updates, with President Schwab's permission, I guess, I'd like to request maybe an update given by administration on what, a brief one at our next council meeting if possible, on what the plans are for extreme weather shelter this year. Would that be possible, just to have a brief one?
That would be fantastic. I know we have a lot on the agenda, but if we could keep
Not
this-
right now.
today,
Not today, but like
We have
next-
plenty on the agenda
yeah,
today,
yeah.
so thank you. If you
Next.
could,
Just so you know, we are working in partnership with the county on cold weather shelters. It is a county-led because the funding for those programs goes through Snohomish County.
Yeah.
So we are working with the county to identify additional cold weather shelters. And we have been looking at South Everett.
Oh, I'm sure.
So,
My point was
but the-
just a public
Yeah.
information. It would be nice for everybody to kind of have an update and next week, a briefing of what the status is, like if there's, our day shelters, what the plan and strategy is for when we do have extreme shelters, just so that the community as well as us can know, just next week. Sorry, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot today, Julie. I meant next week.
since our weather, it is nice to have a reminder, right?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
And let's see, I believe tomorrow, I don't think I heard anything mentioned about the Monte Cristo Awards. That's tomorrow. Tomorrow. And I know also the Economic Alliance Legislative Upstate is tomorrow too, so it's a busy day. But I think that's it. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the council at this point, because I know there's a big agenda. And I know you had a lot of reading assignments, not only the budget, but a lot of the end of the year items. So I'd like just to publicly know that there's a lot of weight and a lot of work that our staff, you guys have been putting into. So I wanted to acknowledge that. Also want to thank the mayor and the staff for putting together some explanations about the impacts, about the budget reductions. I really appreciate that, and at some point, you'll tell us when you'll make that available for the public in your report. Also, I'm excited to see something about the Vision Zero Everett, which is a federal grant we received to conduct citywide speed limit assessments. So I'm very impatient about the results of that, so I can't wait. So I look forward to that and how we can better react to the commuting traffic and speeds that we have in our city. Also, I'd like to recognize our Everett Herald paper and how important it is that we have that organization and the local news and services it provides to our residents. I really appreciate the paper, but I also, I know they're in negotiations with the Everett News Guild, and I just would publicly encourage those two groups to work together, including a fair working wage and incentives that give the reporters the time and the effort to do in-depth reporting. I think that's really important. They're a big part of the information that we all need. So I just wanted to add that. We did have, as Councilmember Fossey said, that we did have a multi-purpose facility, the baseball stadium, a financial update. They are working on the final language of the recommendations. And I didn't check today, but I'm assuming that the council will get the final language for those recommendations by the end of the week. And they are going to be based on the financial feasibility of it. And then so the 18th is going to be a big day for us to decide on at a location at that point. It isn't the final decision, the final process. There's plenty of off-ramp opportunities if we do choose to go a different direction. But the site selection is going to be the main decision-making. And I know that there are a lot of interest, both business and the baseball organizations. I know there's going to be a lot of interest in that meeting. So just give you a heads up when you get that report. Let me see, what else did I have? Also, I did attend it was sponsored by the Aqua Sox. Just some information. There were like 180 people that showed up for the meeting last night. And some very good questions, very good concerns. It's interesting when we go with the process that I think we're very fortunate to be able to approve of the design build process where we come up with the dollars that we can actually generate for the project, and then the team figures out what we can build for it. So I think it's going to be very helpful for that, and that's all I have for this time. Do we have an admin update?
Yeah, I think, well, one item and then one note for the agenda. Council will remember that Clark Park is getting a new dog park, of course, plus new lighting, and an opportunity to do some repair and cleaning of the playground. The contractor will be moving the bollards and adding lights to the dog park area. Because of that, they have to have access to the power pedestal, and they've got construction laydown, so that's why it requires that full closure of the park. They're starting now, and they expect to be done by spring next year. So that is the status there. And then for the agenda, we'll have 2 briefings tonight. So there's 4 slides on the budget, and then a short one from Community Development Director Willie on the 2 final action items. 1 briefing for the 2 of them. So just thought I would flag that for you all. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from our city attorney?
No comments, no executive session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to do something just a little bit unusual. We have 19 consent items. So is there just a quick question that anyone might have about any of the items? I know it was a lot to digest, so. Okay, all right. So at that point, do we have a motion?
Council President, I move items 1 through 20, except for item 15 on the consent agenda.
Councilmember Ryan seconds.
Okay, a motion and seconds made. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Tui?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
President Schwab?
Yes. Okay, next we have proposed actions, item 21 through 27. They are second readings and have been read into the record. I will read item number 28 for the record. It's the first reading. Item number 28, Council Bill 2411-40, first reading, adopt an ordinance closing a special improvement project entitled the Fleming Street Bicycle Corridor, Fund 3003, Program 124, as established by ordinance number 3858-21. Third and final reading is December 18th, 2024. So does council have any questions on the proposed action items, which is 21 through 28? I know it's a lot. Just want to give you guys time real quick, if there's anything. I know how about specifically for 28, since that was a new one? Okay. I guess seeing none, we're not voting.
Notice.
Oh, go ahead, thank you.
I
Councilmember
just
Vogel.
wanted to put out there that most of these are just closing special improvement stuff, so
Yes.
it's already been done. Just putting that into the public, that
Yeah, good.
we've thought about it.
Yeah,
already.
thank you. It's a lot of them, but they're simple action. Thank you for that. Okay, so there's no action on those. So moving on to action items. I'll start off with action item 29, Council Bill 2410-30, adopt an ordinance appropriating the budget for the city of Everett for the year 2025 in the amount of $944,422,185. And do we want to do a motion first, or are we going to just do a presentation first? What's your,
You have to do the public hearing also.
okay, oh, we
so-
got to open a
Oh,
public
no,
hearing?
you don't have a public hearing.
Yeah, we know,
You're
that's what I
right.
said.
But
Do
you
we-
have public comment, that's all.
Well, at this point, how about we'll do our briefing first, okay?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I would like to take a moment to address some misinformation that has arisen regarding what constitutes a balanced budget, as well as the distinction between budgeted and actual ending fund balances. It's important that we have a clear understanding of these concepts. In our city's budget book, there's a section that explains how we ensure the budget is balanced. But what does a budget balance or balanced budget really mean? By law, a balanced budget means that the total amount of money the city has should be equal to the amount we plan to spend, plus the money we want to have remaining by the end of the year. The practice of balancing the 2025 budget is the exact same process that has been used to balance previous year's budgets. Fund balance plays a role in achieving a statutorily or legally balanced budget, and it should be accounted for in the calculation of that budget. In fact, historically, City Council has regularly passed budgets that include the use of a portion of fund balance, which is in line with state law and budgetary rules. Just as businesses use reserves to cover shortfalls, municipalities, such as the city, are also allowed to use fund balances to manage their financial health. This practice is well established, legally permissible, and part of how the city manages its finances in a practical, responsible manner. A few examples of past city budgets where fund balance was used, as you see in the slide, are in the fall of 2013, City Council approved the 24 budget as an example that included the use of fund balance in the amount of $5 million. In the fall of 2021, City Council approved the 22 budget that included the use of fund balance in the amount of $15 million. More recently, in the fall of 23, the 24 budget was passed that included the use of fund balance in the amount of $5 million. It is not uncommon for other cities to follow the same process, as many cities across the state face similar challenges. Just like our city, they often deal with structural deficits due to the limitations of the state's tax structure. The budgeted use of fund balance did not have an adverse impact to the city's financial position, nor did this reduce the budgeted ending fund balance below the 20% minimum requirement. The city's financial team has developed a careful and balanced approach to determine how much fund balance is appropriate to use each year. You may recall I spoke about budget variance, also called carry forward in some instances, but I will refer to it as budget variance going forward. In a September Budget and Finance Committee meeting, budget variance is included in the fund balance. A positive budget variance indicates better than expected financial performance, which is then applied to the upcoming year's budget. Budget variances are used to help balance future budgets, but it should not be assumed that this is the solution to the city's general fund challenges. It helps us until the city has a long-term revenue solution. The city continues to seek revenue options to address the structural deficit due to the 1% cap on property taxes. There is also some confusion about the difference between the budgeted ending fund balance and the actual ending fund balance, which I would also like to address tonight. It is fundamentally incorrect to compare the budgeted ending fund balance with the actual directly, as budget and actuals are based on different factors. The budgeted ending fund balance is an estimate that is in line with a council resolution that was passed in 2004, which requires the city to maintain an ending fund balance equal to 20% of revenues. This means that the budgeted ending fund balance is designed and calculated to be 20% of the projected or budgeted operating revenues for the year. For example, using the 25 proposed budget figures, the general government's proposed revenue for 2025 is $169 million. 20% of that amount is $33.8 million, which also represents the budgeted ending fund balance for the year. Directly comparing budgeted to actual ending fund balances is not an apples-to-apples comparison. The budgeted number is an estimate, and the actual number is the result of actual, real financial activity, or what truly remains in the fund at the end of the year. The table illustrates budgeted and actual ending fund balances since 2014. We do not yet know the 24 amount, as this will be finalized during the second quarter of 25 when the books are closed. Each year, the budgeted ending fund balance is equal to 20% of budgeted revenues. As you can see, actual ending fund balance is higher and averages 31% of actual revenues. This is a great thing. As you heard Mike Bailey share during his briefing, some cities borrow money and pay interest to cover cash flow issues, but we are proud that our city does not and will not borrow money for operations due to cash flow challenges. A healthy fund balance helps us manage cash flow smoothly throughout the year. As a reminder, our financial and budget practices are long-standing and independently verified each year by the Office of the Washington State Auditor, ensuring transparency and accountability. Additionally, we receive annual recognition from the Government Finance Officers Association for excellence in financial reporting and budget presentation, including special recognition for long-term financial planning. This concludes my brief presentation. I do look forward to more discussion about fund balance during the January council retreat, but I am here to answer any additional questions.
Do we have any questions on the presentation? Councilmember Ryan.
Just a comment and a thank you for addressing the misinformation that's been rampant lately. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the briefing. So is there someone from the public who'd like to speak?
Yes, there is. So if Scott could please come to the podium. And please state your full name and city of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening. I'm Scott Murphy, 30-year Everett resident and former city council member from 2013 to 2021, and chair of the Budget and Finance Committee for the council during the last several years of my tenure. So, as you know, I've been here, this is my third visit in the last month. I'm sure you're all very thrilled to see me again. And I really appreciate the information on the fund balance. We've talked about that over the last several weeks. Clearly, fund balance is able to be utilized to balance the budget, but it's important for the clarity for the community and for all of us to be talking about, when we talk about a balanced budget, that we're talking about a budget that is truly balanced. And I think it's important for the community to know that the budget that the mayor has put forward for 2025 has expenses of $173.6 million and revenues of $169 million. So a balanced budget, yes, if you draw down the fund balance to the bare minimum of 20%, which is what is being proposed. The thing I really want to talk about, though, tonight, though, is that in the last 2 weeks, the mayor and her team have issued the 6-year budget outlook for the city. I assume you've all had a chance to see that. And that basically is an annual process where the finance team and the mayor and her staff put together the forecast for revenues and expenses for the next 6 years. Unfortunately, what we have now is a very shocking and alarming 6-year forecast that actually shows the city will be insolvent in 2028. And why do I say that? I say that because according to the city's forecast, the fund balance will drop at the end of 2027 to $11 million. And in 2028, it drops to a negative $12 million if the trajectory of expenses and revenues stays consistent with where things are today. So I appreciate the commentary, but the problem, folks, is that by drawing down the fund balance from a high of $55 million just in 2021, which was almost double the minimum of 20% that was required, by drawing that down over the last several years with deficit spending to the bare minimum of 20%, I think there's actually $4,000 of additional capacity in the fund balance with this proposed budget. But by doing that, there's really not much left in this financial safety net that the mayor mentioned earlier. So I'm pretty alarmed. I assume you are all as well, to see that the city will be insolvent in 2028 is a shocking forecast for the city to be issuing. And for the community, the last 2 times I've been here, staff have, after I've sat down, have done their best to try to cast doubt on the numbers that I've been discussing. And I can tell you that the numbers I'm talking about are right from the city's forecast. So if anybody wants to challenge the numbers and the insolvency forecast, please do, because I'm anxious to hear what the mayor and her team are going to do to turn this around over the next year or 2 before the city is bankrupt. So I would encourage you to reject this deficit budget for 2025, because if you defer this for another year, it just makes it that much tougher a year from now. Thanks for your time.
And that's all the
Thank you.
comments we have.
That's all the comments? Okay, at this point.
Council President?
Yes.
May I ask our finance director to address some of the statements that were just shared, because I believe there are some inaccuracies there, so.
Sure.
Yes, I did say in my presentation that we have a statutorily balanced budget. That means that the resources the city is projected to have in 2025 is equal to the spending as well as the amounts that would be remaining by the end of the year. What the speaker was referring to is what we would consider a structurally balanced budget, and that is where revenues simply equal expenditures without the consideration of what your beginning or ending fund balance is. So let's think about that, right? Because we've had discussions during the many presentations during Proposition 1. And it is no surprise to hear about future deficits, because we have sat here and also share that with you. And it's not even just this year, it's been in previous years. So when we think about revenues and expenditures and trying to balance that every year, revenues grow. Our largest revenue source, property taxes, we know grows at a rate of 1% each year. Our volatile source of revenues, well, we forecast those or budget those in a conservative manner because they're volatile. Expenditures, on the other hand, grow at a rate that is greater than 1 to 3%. In fact, inflation is the Fed's goal is 2%. So even that doesn't keep up with property tax rate increases each year. And if we think about that, every year we would have to cut and reduce services because expenditures would gradually increase greater than revenues, which means we wouldn't be maintaining our services, we would be reducing the services that we have, and we would be doing so every single year.
And I'll just add that, as this council is painfully aware, we have been reducing services every year, certainly for the last 8 years. I know the city was making pretty significant reductions before that as well. It is because we have a structural budget deficit, as former Councilmember Murphy also knows, as he was the finance chair, and we discussed it at length during his tenure on council. We are not the only city that has a structural budget deficit. If you read any news source, you'll see that the city of Mukilteo, the city of Mill Creek, the city of Linwood, the city of Seattle, the state of Washington, the county, we all are facing structural budget deficits due to the tax structure in Washington state. So we make a choice to reduce services every year to the extent that we can, while protecting the core city services like public safety, police, fire, public works, roads, traffic engineering, library services, animal shelter, and basic park maintenance. And we've made very difficult reductions everywhere. I wish we had a structurally sound budget, but that is not something we will have until we have a revenue solution. So appreciate the work that this council's put in, appreciate all the good questions and comments that come forward. These are the questions our community should be asking, and our municipal budgets are very complicated. So appreciate the time everyone is taking to study it.
Okay. And thank you for your comments, and Scott, thank you for yours. Okay, moving on to this action item. How about we'll do, if we get a motion in a second, then we'll start with council discussion. Okay. Councilmember Bader.
Yeah, actually, could I just ask one question about the
Sure,
fund
on the presentation, yes.
Correct.
That'd be
thank you.
appropriate,
Yeah.
yes.
Heidi, obviously, we see a high in 2021 of 55 million. One thing I've been wondering, and I apologize if I haven't asked this question or asked it properly, but I think there was a fair amount of pandemic money from the federal government flowing in that year. Is that correct? And how did that impact the fund balance, including in subsequent years, if so?
So I wasn't here in 2020, but what I can speak to of what I've heard, in 2020, there was a fiscal advisory committee that had made recommendations of where to cut, really planning ahead for not knowing what the pandemic would bring financially. And the city, as all cities and counties and other local governments were doing at the time, was cutting, not being as optimistic about their tax revenues. And that's exactly what happened with sales tax. We had reduced sales tax revenues, understanding that everyone was staying at home and not a lot of spending was probably happening on the outside. With that, we had a carry forward or a budget variance of $15.5 million in 2020. So as you see, what was happening and I'll show you here. So in our 2020 actuals, or under expenditures, our budget variance of $15.5 million was then applied to the 22 original budget. And the reason for that is because we don't actually actualize, right, our financial activities until the second quarter of every year. So in the fall of 2021, the only actuals that we do know are what happened in 2020. And that's what we use for our budget variance for the upcoming year.
Great. Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. I just wanted to connect a quick dot there because I fielded a similar question at the county earlier this week. That 2021 bump, the county also had a similar bump in revenues that year, and it was pandemic related because they had under forecasted for sales tax revenues for the exact reasons you mentioned, but then there was the federal stimulus dollars that came through, so spending actually increased quite a bit. So the county experienced a similar bump that year, and that's what they had attributed it to. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Bobley.
I think that this is really interesting because it goes from council approved fall 2013, and then council, it goes through a few of them, and then fall 2021, and our speaker was on council those years. And so I know there have been a lot of personal line items that I have been upset with about various budgets throughout the year, but every year I think the council as a whole has approved the budget unanimously. And so that is the point that I want to make.
Okay, do we have any appropriate questions, appropriately, I guess, procedurally, for the presentation at this point? Okay, then we'll go forward with the motion.
Council President, I'll move item number 29, that we, I move that motion.
Okay.
Councilor Ryan seconds.
Okay, we have a motion second now, open for discussion and points. Anyone like to go first, or should I start down the line? Okay, well, I'll just start with Councilmember Toohey.
All right, thank you. Yes, I have a few things here. First off, I want to thank Heidi and her team for really taking all the extra time. I know we gave you a lot of questions, and I really appreciate the effort that you guys took in that, in our answers. And I think Jennifer helped out too. I also want to thank my colleagues for digging in and asking some really hard, thoughtful questions this year. I do have a couple of concerns and a couple of requests as we move forward. First of all, the budget process. This is a process we go through every year, gives the council about 6 weeks to review, ask questions, and try to fully understand the, 400 pages and $173 million budget in expenditures as is proposed this year. And it's not really a process by which the council can make really any meaningful changes to the proposal. The council needs to set high-level financial policies that guide the process and the staff for future. So I look forward to working on that. Our voters are having a hard time making ends meet. They've told us, and they got their higher minimum wages, which is great. We're the second highest, I believe, in the country. They also told us they don't want to pay more in taxes for basic services for the city and the county. And this is not just an Everett issue. This happened across the county and the state. So we do need to listen to those who we represent. And this means we need to rethink how we do our business and how we provide services and programs that we provide. So the concerns I have for this budget, under departmental expenses, the budget reflects cuts in 12 departments ranging from less than 1% to minus 23% cut for street improvements, 13% in human resources, 12% for the library, and so on. And this averages 10% cut for 12 departments, and that represents $3.4 million. The budget also includes 10 departments with increases to expenditures ranging from 1% for police, up to 16% for the engineering, public services, 19% for legal, 20% for general government non-department. I'm sure there's good reasons for all of that, but we average that. Of those 10 departments, it's 8%. This represents over $10.2 million in just those 10 departments. So expenses have a net increase of $6.8 million. And we must try to cut our budget. We must try to live within our means. And it needs to be, for me, it needs to be more equitable across all departments. We really tend to really hit hard the library and parks. Every year we do this, they get hit the hardest. And our community has told us in the survey that those are two of their top items that they utilize the most. So we should be really mindful of that moving forward. And, the library really was a lot out of their budget, but for the dollar amount compared to our whole budget, wasn't really very much. I think it's like $500,000. And so anyway, I really think we should be more mindful of those programs, especially in the winter with the library and the cold weather. The budget also reflects that we are planning on spending more than our revenue by $4.7 million. And a lot of jobs, we talked about, that's a structural budget balancing. That's great. And I understand the fund balance. But I believe we are now to the point where we really can't afford to utilize that. And if we can start training ourselves to do a structural balance where the revenue and the expenses match, we will help dig our way out of here, out of this challenge. I see 2026 is teeing up as our biggest challenge yet, and I do worry about that. I will be reluctantly voting to approve the budget, but I do not believe it's in our best interest. I don't believe it's in our best interest to not vote for it and to possibly shut down the city. That's not what we need to do, but I would like to ask a commitment from Council President Schwab that we address some of these items that I have here at the council retreat. I'd like our financial consultant to provide us with some of the financial best practices policies that the council can review and maybe adopt, specifically talking about how we balance, what we want to balance a budget, how we want to get out of our deficit. I would like us to also look at the budget process, review our process. Maybe we can have some earlier high-level budget plans for the council to look at earlier in the year. I think we should look at the budget book. Does it address all the questions and ensure that the information that the council needs is part of that? And I'd also think we should review the Physical Advisory Committee's recommendations from 2020. I don't know that we addressed more than one of those. And I'd also like to have an update on our forecast of 2024 as soon as we can get that. We need to plan for 2026, and we need to start planning in January. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I took notes, but if you could send me that list, that'd be great. Thank you. Councilmember Bader.
Thanks, Council President. Again, appreciate all the clarification, especially you've done over the last few weeks on the fund balance. And even though I missed 2 weeks, I did go back and watch the council meetings, so picked up those briefings. And so very helpful on the fund balance info. Just wish you had the crystal ball to tell us what 2024 was going to look like, but I know you can't do that at this point. So having been on council for the better part of a decade here, now I went back actually and searched my emails and looked for structural deficit and of course found that it, references to that all the way back, I think, to 2014 at least. And you found a document, I think, from 2015 that projected deficits in 2017 of $7 million, 2018 of $10 million, 2019 of $13 million, 2020 of $17 million. So none of that is, so the fact that we're projecting a deficit is not new at all. And at least from my time here on council, I've never lived without a projection of a future year's deficit. And so I think that's, notable that. But in those prior years, we also had the opportunity to pull some revenue sources, which we did. I think we increased some fees and maybe the B&O tax. We also increased utility taxes to match what our peers were doing, et cetera. So we had some more revenue options back then, even though I know we also did some cuts. Now we don't have those options, real revenue options. So I think that's kind of a difference between the 2020s and the 20-teens. I am concerned on this budget about not making the left contributions. I'm also concerned about cutting back on the road maintenance budget. That will ultimately catch up with us. But what I would say is I have no better suggestions, and I haven't heard better suggestions from anyone out there other than, I think, one person suggests we have bloated law enforcement budget, and another suggesting our firefighters are overpaid, neither of which I agree with. Yeah. I think our salaries are set to be competitive with other jurisdictions, and in some cases, we even have binding arbitration looming over us if we don't make sure those salaries are competitive. So not an easy thing for us to do, often compared to private business. So anyhow, as we go forward into next year, again, I will be looking forward to people suggesting what can we cut. I would note, at least by the numbers I did, we could cut all of administration, all the communications department, half of the finance department, and still not get enough revenue to restore the left contributions in the road maintenance fund, let alone other things. So I can't point to any less painful cuts that I can suggest. Looking forward to the retreat kicking off the budget process as well next year, and thank Councilmember Toohey for the good point she made as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Bader, for your comments. I would second all of that. Thank you to staff as well. I know it's been a long year, and we've had a lot of different budget presentations and whatnot, so I appreciate all the thought and hard work that you've put into it. I am also concerned about insolvency in a few years, and I think it's the revenue side of the equation that needs to be addressed. And I have concerns that, I know we have a request into the state to raise the 1% property tax cap, levy cap. However, I would be pleasantly surprised if that actually went through. So I think we need to hope for the best, but plan for the worst. I would like to see us revisit revenue option discussions in the early months next year. Possibly a more targeted levy, or just some different revenue options that the city can work on, because we don't have any, we haven't had anything left to cut for decades now, so, or a decade at least. So, yeah, I think the reality is that we aren't able to make ends meet. And at this point, we're getting to a point where we're not paying our mortgage so that we can save money. And I think that's worrisome and concerning. And I think our residents deserve better from their city. And so in the coming months, I would love to see us work hard to make sure that we are thoughtfully asking residents for ways that they can pitch in more to make sure that we can have a less solemn discussion during the 2026 budget discussions as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Zarlingo.
I appreciate the comments of the speakers before me. That'll shorten some of what I have to say. I'll try not to do any duplications, but I hope you'll forgive me if I wander a little, because I'm trying to make a number of different, understand things in a number of different ways in a number of different areas. One of the things that strikes me from the outset, with respect to the taxes that Everett residents pay, the property taxes, we're about a third lower than the county average, than other cities. So I recognize the difficulty in making ends meet. I think the city has for quite some time been getting by on some smaller numbers, even as some of these other costs grow. So, and then that one table of the ending fund balances, I'm sort of Stone Age in some ways, and maybe I interpret things differently. So I just took those numbers, the ending, the budget and ending fund balance, and the actual ending fund balance, and I made a graph. And if you look at the graph, you can see a long-term gradual trend upward in both of these. And as I think Councilmember Bader said, we've been forecasting some of these deficits in the past. We've been managing through that kind of stuff. That doesn't mean that kind of stuff should go on forever. It doesn't mean we shouldn't pay attention to that. It doesn't mean that the job in terms of this balancing is not going to be getting harder, because I think it is. Partly at the suggestion of the experienced budget consultant that we hired, also a former Everett finance director. We're going to be starting really at the beginning of the year in our retreat in doing more budget analysis and budget activity through the year. And I think that's what we realize we're going to need to do. The cuts, they've been going on for 15 years now or longer, really 20 probably. The city's facing much higher inflation than the consumer price index, as witnessed by some of the numbers here tonight. And so we're going to need to get better at this. Our community members have said by their votes that they want us to manage within the envelope we have. And so what I have not yet seen are major changes in what we do that would account for those millions of dollars. So I guess let me go on to a couple of things. I think it's important to the kind of explanations and discussion we're doing here tonight are us doing the job we were elected to do, and then that requires really, I think, some explanation of why we're doing this way. There have been a lot of cuts made, including the furloughs, a number of these cuts that are going to be whose beneficial effects in terms of the budget are going to be sustained in coming years. Some of the things we just don't get a choice in. We talked a little bit about public safety. We need to be competitive in terms of hiring our public safety employees, police and fire especially, and that is simply foundational. I think that will continue that way, and it should. And one of the points about that, I think, is that job has gotten harder over the years. The complex mix we've got of homelessness, mental health issues, and drug abuse has made the jobs of our public safety, the police and fire, significantly more difficult. We're asking a lot of them, and it's no surprise that it's going to take better pay to sustain that. But otherwise, the city has been pretty frugal. Let's see. One thing I've also noted in some of the comments on the budget are some complaints by community members about things that we no longer do. And I guess this is one of those cases where if we're doing our job, we're probably going to get a lot more of that. We are going to be less responsive. Things are going to be a little bit less clean and quickly cleaned up. You know, as a city, we are trying to implement, and as city leaders and administration, we're trying to implement what the voters have decreed. So I think that's what's going to continue. You know, one major indicator, if you're a community member and thinking, okay, how are you doing in terms of efficiency, is the number of employees per resident or per 1,000 residents, however you want to measure it. And that's been slowly going down and takes a hit now, a further hit because of the voluntary severance programs and the furloughs. So that is the kind of thing one would do in a business where things are getting tighter, in an organization where things are getting tighter. But I will say to our community members, you're already paying remarkably low property taxes proportionally to the rest of the county, and we are tightening up further, so expect more of that. If you think differently, though, please tell us. You know, we're all going to be reaching out to our neighborhoods and to our districts and answering questions, asking questions, looking for feedback in terms of what sort of trade-off our community members want us to make. Don't just complain about something that you used to have and we don't have anymore. Talk to us about what you would like or like to give up. Some of the discussions about the library are really relevant, but of course we allocate money to the library decides how they spend that. So that's a library board decision. And I think the cities can manage things in different ways, which are all acceptable. Some of those were explained by our budget consultant, but no one I've seen has had heartburn about the process we use or the reliability of the numbers or the forecasts. Some of the decisions and some of the priorities on that are certainly open for questions, criticism, and alternatives. Now, the other thing, of course, is this budget is for 1 year. So we will be diving into this very quickly, and as conditions change, if things are different than we thought they would be, as they sometimes are, that's something we will be handling and looking at more as a council, much more early in the year than we have before. And of course, also, we'll look for additional public-private kind of partnerships, things what we can do. We've been talking with some residents about some volunteer efforts to restore some of the things to help clean up parks. So there are things that can be done that we'll all be looking to do. Sorry to speak so long, but I hope our community members see that we are trying to address this the best we can. We're trying to be careful. We are proceeding along lines that are established and reliable, but we are not locked to that. If we find better ways to look at this, we'll take suggestions, certainly suggestions in terms of different priorities and significant money that can be saved, but also differences in terms of how we might manage it with respect to structural balances, for example, as opposed to the other. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And don't worry about being long. This is an important night. So, Councilmember Vogely.
Thank you. Thank everybody for their work. I don't think I say that enough, and so I do mean it, and know that if I don't say it, I really mean it to everybody up here. I have a lot of disagreements, and sometimes I say what they are, and so that's not a surprise. But I will say that it's capitalism. We could stop there, but I'm going to go a little further and say, yeah, it's definitely the 1% property tax cap. We're in trouble. We should know that by now. Everybody that listens once a year should know that the 1% tax cap is a problem for revenue for the city. So there's that. And I do believe that preventative measures are key to success going into the future. I don't think we take enough in like the social aspect of preventative measures. I know that 50% of the general budget is for police, and I think police are important, and they have a job to do, and I think that a lot of that
job, and you've heard me say it before, many times. It shouldn't be social work. And I'm glad that we have social workers on our police force, but that's not what I believe law enforcement is designed for. And I think, although I didn't drill down, that a lot of the budget for police is also overtime emphasis patrols. We just heard earlier tonight that there are emphasis patrols around certain areas of the city that probably, if that business was doing all that they could do, that is necessary to keep their business viable, we wouldn't need our law enforcement to be doing emphasis patrols. You know, we can all work together there. I think part of one issue is like the no sit, no lie, the no social services on the ground floor in Metro Everett. That's something that we can change as a council, and it's something that we did institute as a council. We made it so that folks that are not using city money, i.e. Hope and Wellness is a valid business that is not utilizing city money at all. They don't use our money, and yet we're closing them down because there's no social services allowed on the ground floor in Metro Everett. That's something that we could change, and I would be interested in doing that. And that is a preventative measure because, granted, you know, it's not a lot of money in respect to, say, a person as an FTE, but it's about people, and it's about freezing, and it's about getting folks to their appointments at jail, their appointments at court dates, court times, court fines, all of these things, because they've got cancer and they can't sit down outside. And that's one particular person's experience. But we can remove the ordinances that refuse access to social services on the ground floor. This is about the budget, and it's about human beings. And the library should actually not be a social service day center. They're not trained for that work. They don't have access necessarily to the mental health and PTSD services that our law enforcement does for like overdose reversals that they're going through, you know, having to do. So all of that to say, there are some ordinances that aren't necessarily the budget that we as a group of 7 can reverse or change or make difference so that the money that we do have coming in is going in a direction to benefit all members of our city and residents that are visiting. And I would really like, in this next year, to be able to see us care more for all of our folks, just like Councilmember Toohey had mentioned. You know, they have given us something to do, and we need to do it for the good of all of our folks. Again, thank you for all of the work that you're doing to try. That is all.
Thank you. Councilmember Fossey.
Thank you to staff for your dedication and repeated answers to all of our numerous questions from every field. Appreciate it. You guys have been very thorough and just well done. Thank you for all the extra communication and help clarifying things for the community. Our budget is very confusing. When I first started at council, from the get-go, 2 things that I really, really wanted to see after kind of seeing how things worked, I was like, well, we need council needs a budget analyst because we don't really have one independently to help us understand what we're looking at here. And also a policy analyst. We haven't gotten there yet, but I'm glad we decided to move forward with the budget analyst, which was a very, very small, tiny little amount compared to everything else in the budget. And it was worth it because he came back with a presentation that showed us some of the longer term things we can do to make to better analyze our budget, to make it clearer to the public. And I appreciate Councilmember Tui and a lot of my other colleagues that were talking about how we're going to be looking at some of those during our retreat and some of those options that he presented. And hopefully that will make it easier process going forward. Now, again, all of these things that are in the budget, we're not going to agree with all, we're not going to like a lot of the changes that are in some of there. Like I'm very frustrated about the library. And I do have some frustrations about some ideas and recommendations coming from council that it seems like the administration pushes back on automatically without even listening or finding out more information. And this has happened repeatedly across all fronts, I feel like, on any ideas that we put out there. Now, these are not things that are going to save our budget, but they are tiny little efforts, and I feel like before we can even discuss them, there is a blanket email sent out. Nope, that's not going to work because X, Y, Z, when you didn't even talk to the person about the idea. So, going forward, maybe a little bit of, okay, let's look at that idea. Are you saying this? And a little bit of clarity in that, and maybe not just an immediately rejection of some of the revenue ideas would be helpful in the future. Obviously, not going to change this budget. They are nickel and dime, tiny little things, but a different approach in the future would be appreciated. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I guess going last, thank you for all your comments. I don't necessarily want to repeat, I do want to repeat, but I won't for time. I do want to be a little bit reflective, and this is really maybe for someone who might be watching this, or a blog or a story to be told, is this, to me, has really been two parts. We began this journey early in this year doing something that Everett City Council has never done before, and that's evaluate a tax increase, a levy lid lift. We looked at multiple types of tax increases. We had a series of 12 meetings, and it began with a history of the structural deficit, evaluation of the different options, and in the end, we went with the levy lid lift, and the residents have spoken. So I am proud of this group, because once the residents have spoken, guess what? We're back to square one again, and we're going through basically a new process. And I hope, Councilmember Bader and Tui and the mayor, she was a council member, and even Scott Murphy and some more gray-haired people in the back there. I just think that, that's true. Thank you. I just have never seen a council and a mayor staff so transparent in the process. I mean, trying to get and having discussions over the variance and cash carry forward and the fund balances was a very difficult task. And I just have never seen such a transparency and such a list of in-depth questions. Now, it might have been gone in the backdrop and council members in different discussions, but I've never seen it so public. So thank you for that. I keep in mind that, we did lay off 31 employees, and that's no small item. Those are, I looked through the list, and I can't think of any service that I didn't think that needed to be provided. The so-called waste of government, I just didn't see it. Those were all needed services. And I just want to keep those 31 employees in mind. That's a difficult thing to do. I also don't think this is like the end all. This is a great city, and this is never a great thing to do is pass a budget, right? But the city offers so much, and I think moving forward, I think we're just at the beginning of this process. And as you guys have mentioned, it's going to start in January, and then we're going to be focused on the policy and not in the weeds so much, because it's the long term in our financial policy that's, and of course the results of our revenue and our expenditures that are going to get us through this. So I'm actually optimistic optimistic about the future. I know people are still moving here from Everett. I know there's a lot of growth, there's a lot of excitement by our community, but there's also a lot of hard work. And so I'm gonna, it's a mixed bag here. We don't have a 10% revenue increases like we did in the mid-90s. I can't imagine how that'd be like. Or we had a property tax restriction of 3 or at 1.6%. That I don't know if our council and our mayors realized how much freedom that gave them to do different things and provide different services for the city. But that's not our world today, and I'm confident that we're going to move forward and we're going to come up with some good solutions working together. So thank you for that. So any more comment from council?
One quick comment,
Yeah.
if that's okay.
Yeah.
You inspired me with your comments. I appreciate all the comments all the council members made, and also look forward to joining you at the retreat and listening to your debate on financial policies, and really appreciate that is going to be the focus, because it is the most important thing that you do each year is this budget. So starting in January is a great idea. But just for the handful of residents that you watch these meetings, we have a structural deficit in our municipal operational general fund budget. The city is doing really well, as Council President Schwab indicated. People are moving here, businesses are thriving, we have new businesses coming here. All of the budgetary challenges that cities like Everett all across the state are experiencing has nothing to do with the health and well-being of businesses and the community. It has to do with the tax structure in Washington state that really limits how cities and counties and all these agencies can grow. While the community can grow and thrive, our budgets don't grow with it, and that makes it very challenging to continue to deliver services. So just want a reminder that although we struggle here with our budget, I'm glad to see that Everett as a whole is strong and growing. So thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Tui?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
President Schwab?
Yes. Okay, moving on to action item number 30, authorize the release of request for proposal number 2024-155, care management services in the form of substantially provided.
Moved.
So that's a mouthful. Maybe we've just been talking too much tonight. We have Julie Willie here to do a presentation for both item number 30 and 31, which I'll just read that. Authorize the release and request of proposal 2024-157, competency diversion services in the form of substantially provided. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'm Julie Willie, the Community Development Director, and as you mentioned, I'm here to just provide a small briefing regarding the action items number 30 and 31 pertaining to the congressional appropriations to support the establishment of an alternative response team here in Everett. You may recall the Community Development Division was awarded a $4.5 million congressional appropriation thanks to Senator Patty Murray. As mentioned, this funding will support the creation of an alternative response program to assist residents experiencing behavioral health challenges when a police or fire and EMS is not required. Although the initial request was for a 3-year term, the agreement with the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, known as SAMHSA, is just for 1 year and runs through September of 2025. Our plan is to commit all the funding at least 60 days prior to the end of this contract, which will enable us to request a no-cost extension in hopes that the program can run into 2026. If the SAMHSA funding is not extended, we are optimistic that we will be able to leverage additional funding, including the use of our paused COVID recovery funds that were previously allocated to behavioral health services, and awaiting and seeking new regional and state funding for like programs, such as Medicaid transformation dollars. The new program, branded as CARE, or Community Alternative Response Everett, reflects a reorganized community support team designed to expand services and strengthen partnerships across city departments. This shifts from embedding social workers within specific departments to a singular citywide crisis response model. The team will include 6 crisis responders who will proactively identify and assist high-frequency callers, respond to referrals from police and fire, and to deploy to calls involving behavioral health, domestic disputes, substance abuse, and other social needs. We will also have a prevention specialist and 2 care specialists that will focus on community-based supports and connect individuals with complex needs to the services and resources that they need. We will maintain an MSW internship program that will support our efforts as well as help us to grow social service professionals that our community desperately needs. We plan and hope that by March of 2025, our new care team will be fully staffed and able to operate 6 days a week, 10 hours each day. The team is being led by Community Support Manager Kelly Rourke and Field Supervisor Ashley Dyer, whose position was originally established using a grant from the Association for Washington Cities. While funding would support a larger team, the SAMHSA funding, we aim to measure our growth and to ensure we have best practices and program sustainability before we grow too big and too fast. However, as allowed by the grant, we may request to hire a part-time project coordinator to assist with the data collection and reporting needs. The team will have an office together on the 2nd floor of the Transit Center with satellite locations in our police, fire, and library facilities. Funding will also support branding, uniforms, and equipment needed to ensure and enhance professionalism, safety, and effectiveness. In addition to the internal team, SAMHSA funds will support contracts with external organizations to provide case management, transportation services, competency diversion support, and alignment with our 911 and 988 system. In compliance with federal and city procurement processes, 2 procurement requests are being presented for your approval tonight. One is for providing longer-term case management services to individuals and families referred to by city staff, and the second is for competency diversion program that will offer more intensive case management to our frequent utilizers of public safety and judicial systems. The other 2 contracts will come to you at a later time, or procurement processes will come to you at a later time. So in closing, I just wanted to mention our community support team has demonstrated its value through the last several years in addressing our street-level social issues, supporting our vulnerable and isolated residents, helping to combat our drug epidemic, and serving as partners with our other city teams. I'm confident that CARE will further enhance our ability to meet the growing needs of our city, and I thank you for your patience as we implement and launch this program, and I'm happy to answer any questions, as is Teresa, who has the procurement know-how.
Thank you for, it's quite a follow-up after the budget discussion, so thanks you for hanging in here.
I'm a little tired from your budget discussion, quite frankly. So.
Any questions from council? Councilmember Ryan.
Great, thank you, Julie. That's really exciting. Can you share a little bit about how this team will both differ and intersect with the EMOTE team that's going to be deployed soon?
Well, the EMOTE team has launched. They've been working in the field since about July. And so we are meeting with them on a regular basis to kind of help them to identify areas, organizations, and individuals that could benefit from being referred to EMOTE, as well as they're going out and doing kind of their own outreach. So it really is a partnership, like with many of our nonprofit organizations. They do the good work that, really, quite frankly, we are not a service provider by and large. A city is not responsible for human service implementation on the day-to-day. So we're really lucky that we have these grant funds to be able to help address the needs of our residents, but really we rely on those nonprofit partners, and EMOTE is one of our newest kind of most innovative and passionate programs that are really trying to bring street medicine to the field, and we have great support from the state to implement that project, and certainly the Drug Crisis Task Force was highly supportive of EMOTE and really trying to meet people where they're at. So alignment, I guess, is the best word that each of them kind of have a different niche, because the moat obviously can connect people directly to medicated assisted treatment, to medical care, to telehealth. They can help transport people to appointments and such. So really complementary service, I would say.
Any other questions? Councilmember Zarlingo.
Maybe it's only me, but I got some temporal confusion here. I think you mentioned starting in March or so, but you talked about applying for a 3-year program, getting a 1-year program, and then the stuff ending in September, and
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I thought about after the fact, I should have had a couple slides. It might have been easier to follow. But guess what? Federal government contracts are really hard to finalize, and so we weren't able to really get permission from the federal government until October 1st to start the program. We wanted to have that security that we did indeed have the funds before we started to kind of build out the program and make the changes that we needed to make to our original team, as well as start hiring. And so because it's going to take time to hire a couple more staff, to get the uniforms, to do the branding, to get the vehicles, to get the things that we need, our goal is to get it all up and running by March so that we're fully able to do the 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. And again, we're pretty confident that by doing that, then come June, 60 days before our contract is up, we'll be able to go to SAMHSA and say, hey, we're already in line, we already have all of these contracts in place, we want to continue to do this. Please give us an extension so that we can continue to use those funds into 2026.
so it's an extension on spending the money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, I went to DC last year and met with Senator Murray and her team and advocated for the city for an earmark. She was very enthusiastic about the idea of this alternative response team, wanted to support it. As it turned out, they felt that rather than an earmark, a SAMHSA grant would be a better fit. So through her advocacy and our successful grant application, we were successful in receiving that SAMHSA grant. But unlike the earmark, which would have been a 3-year program, the SAMHSA grant is a 1-year program. So on my last trip, we've already had initial discussions on how we apply for that extension, because we know we will need, it's a $4.5 million grant. It'd be lovely to be able to just start a program and spend it all at once, but then what do you do the next year? So as Julie shared, we're following best practices. She's starting slowly but strongly, and then gearing up for that extension so that we at least can run the program for an additional year, while we hope to have funding to continue it beyond that.
Okay. Got it.
Councilmember Bogley.
I didn't even like raise my hand. You just
I could
knew.
see it. I could see it.
That was amazing. I've been hoping and dreaming and wanting this since I began, so yay. That's super exciting, and I just want to put out a request for the uniforms not to look anything at all like law enforcement, and maybe jeans and t-shirts, because it's easier to be approached by civvy clothes rather than super duper uniforms. Nothing against the cops. That's all.
Any other questions on item 30 and 31? Okay, hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve item number 30?
I'll move item number 30 with one quick question on the title of that. Is the word care in the title should actually be case management services?
Correct.
Thank you for
Okay.
that, because it didn't sound right when I said it, right? Good call.
So moved.
Councilmember Ryan seconds with the typo correction.
Okay. There's been a motion and second. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Toohey?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Vice President Zerlingo?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes?
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
President Schwab?
Yes. Okay, moving on to item 30. Is there a motion?
31.
Oh, I'm sorry, 31. Thank you.
Scott, Councilmember Bader moves item number 31.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Ryan seconds.
Okay, any more questions or? All right. Clerk, please take the roll for item 31.
Councilmember Toohey?
Yes.
Councilmember Bader?
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Vice President Zerlingo?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes?
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
President Schwab?
Yes, and with no further business, meeting's adjourned.